Hi, my name's Link. You're watching, hopefully, you're watching a mildly interesting guy, yours truly, doing mildly interesting things. Today's edition of Mildly Interesting Things happens to be wrong tool. Well, let me just show you. Plumbing. In fact, we are going to do a clean out and reset of my reverse osmosis system. Okie dokie, dismounting the spigot. First thing, there's a hex screw on the back. Here, let me just swivel that so you can see it. There's that hex screw on the back. You need to loosen that hex screw, pull it out about that far, and then you can just twist the whole top part like so and pull it out. It didn't go so smoothly the first time I did it because I didn't loosen that, and as a result I broke the tab off. However, there still is one more tab, so I'm gonna live with it. Second thing you need to do is reach in there with a screwdriver and unscrew the anchor screw that's holding it down to the sink. Just a simple Phillips. And once you've got that done, which I've already done as well, wiggle it up, and I'm going to pull it all the way through so I can get it out of the way. Apologize if my arm's in the way. Okay. Third thing, what I'm digging for is replacing, or at least checking, the pressure reducer valve, and that is located here. So there's two screws, one of which you can see I've already removed. Again, simple Phillips screws. I'm going to remove the second screw here. Once you remove those two screws, you will get this part loose. It comes out and it actually has a little more metal pipe on the small side. The small side goes up and over just like the spigot and does not connect to the large side. So I just cut the black tube, the big black tube that I was working on, and as you can see, I think there's a problem here. It's full of gunk. So this is the part that sits inside the faucet that I'm calling the gravity trap. As I mentioned, the small black line comes from the reverse osmosis filter as the refusal stream, and there's actually a little bit more metal on this tube that comes up and around, in the same design as the spigot actually, and then there's a gap, and the gap allows the dirty water to come up and drop into the bigger tube, which then runs down in a straight shot to the drain, where it ties in to the special fitting, this thing, where it ties into the drain under the sink. What I have done is get rid of this piece. Don't want it anymore. Now that I've removed that part from this assembly, I'm just going to put this back together. This part's pretty easy to do. Just putting everything back together, getting the screw, threading on the fancy clasp nut on the end, and then I'm just going to push it all through. This winged thing will collapse to go through the hole and then expand on the other side, and then I just need to tighten down the screw. Now that that's all tightened down, I need to fix this piece that I broke. Not too critical. A little bit of cyanoacrylate should fix it. Maybe not the best fix, but it'll do for me. Okay, that glue's on there. Cyanoacrylate's funny stuff. You know, they say it sticks to everything, but in my experience, the only thing it really sticks to is your fingers and anything that's touching your fingers. But the joint that you actually want it to seal, doesn't always do the best job. We'll see. I'll let that set while I get other stuff going. So today's learning the hard way lesson happens to be clean workspace, especially when dealing with tiny, tiny springy thingies. This spring just decided to go flying again. I can't believe I did that again. What an idiot. Well, and the other lesson of learning the hard way, don't play with springs. Well, I've cleaned up the workspace a bit, and I finally found the spring. It could have gone many, many different places, but thank God it's here. All right. I'll show you. It's a very, very feather light little spring, and cat hair is not going to help the issue, nor is this rug. So I'm going to put this in the bin of parts. There we go. I'm going to clean all that up, get the cat hair off, and put it together. Okay, rebuilding the check valve. The check valve has a bunch of parts. The first part is the housing, this thing. The check valve is housed inside the small end down in that bore, and this end screws into the reverse osmosis membrane cartridge. Next in line is this piece, the bottom thingy, and there's the spring, then there's the valve itself which fits inside the spring, and then there's the seal body which has two seals, one seal inside it against which the valve seats, and then one seal on the outside which seals against the housing. My plan, everything snaps together, this whole thing snaps together. What I'm going to do is add a touch of Vaseline to the inner surface here, and how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to dip the head of the valve in the Vaseline, put it in there, put everything together, snap it into place, and I'll show you what it looks like once it's snapped into place. Well, now that's what it looks like when it's all together. You've got the housing, the seals, the spring on the inside, and then the cap with the vents on it, and this is all going to go inside the end piece. Okay, I know I'm calling a lot of things the housing. It's kind of like another one of my videos where I had a lot of step zeros, but there we go. This piece fits into this piece in this orientation. It just snaps in. It has come to my attention now that I have videotaped all the preceding segments in vertical mode, for which I apologize profusely. Anyhow, here it is, assembled, the check valve inside the housing. You can get these for about $5 online, so I'm told. So why didn't I just get it for $5 online? Well, the simple answer is I thought I already had it. And the kit that I got didn't come with it. It came instead with the flow restrictor, which is another part that I need to replace. The strainer goes in the similar fitting that is connected to the black line, or refuse, or wastage line. I have marked it black because black is the color of the tube that goes into it. As you can see, the strainer is there. I have my replacement strainer here and my replacement flow restrictor here. The flow restrictor goes in the end of the tube that fits inside here. So I will be pulling out the old one, putting in the new one, and putting in the new strainer here. This strainer doesn't look bad. And there you can see the old strainer on the left, the new strainer on the right, and you can pretty clearly see the reason it needs to be replaced. It didn't look bad when it was in the housing, but you pull it out and compare and it's obvious that it's gunked up. Even though it doesn't look like much, and it still looks like it's pretty clear, the extra color on it actually indicates a buildup of whatever on the wires and indicates thickening of the wires, which means reduction in the flow area, so strainer is partially clogged. Not really enough to make a big difference, but enough to warrant changing now while I'm at it. And now the strainer's in there, in a classic case of easier said than done, but it's in there. And the next thing to do is change the flow restrictor. This flow restrictor is basically just a piece of plastic, that little blue thing in the end of the tube, with a tiny orifice on the end. And here we have another shot of the old one and the new one. I think it's pretty clear which one's which. I am going to rinse out the tube as well. I don't know why there's so much. Alrighty, the hose is all clean now. You can hear my compressor on because it was so gunky that I had to resort to blowing compressed air through it just to clear this out. I couldn't even blow through it myself. Now, I do understand exactly why this is so gunked up. This is the effluent, the waste from the reverse osmosis. So this is all the stuff that did not go into the drinking side. I'm going to put in the flow restrictor now. Okay, flow restrictor in, and we are ready to put this part back on. And just for good form's sake, that's the whole thing. Flow restrictor replaced, and the strainer replaced. This goes on the black side. And just for completeness, this is the entire drain side setup. So you have, starting from this side, you have the housing for the flow reducer and the strainer. Now, why we put a strainer on the drain side, I do not actually know. But there was a strainer there, probably to protect the flow reducer, so left it in there. it's not like the strainer is going to block things that will block the flow reducer, because the mesh size of the strainer looks larger than the mesh size of the flow reducer, and then the whole size of the flow reducer. But anyhow, I digress. Strainer and flow reducer in there, all tied into this thin black line which comes down and then ties into the thick black line right here, and then ties into the under sink drain using this adapter. Okay, now we seem to be getting closer to the finish line. We have here the check valve that we reassembled, lubed and reassembled, and it goes in the central one. This and we also have here the reverse osmosis housing, the filter, the membrane housing. You know, on the outlet side there are two outlets. One outlet is for the black hose and one outlet is for the white hose. The white hose is the one with the check valve. That's the clean. So we're going to screw the check valve in there. And get it nice and snug, and then snug it down a little bit more. My tools, it's difficult doing this all one-handed, but I figured since there wasn't a complete teardown and rebuild video of this type of filter online that I could find, I figured it's time to put one up. Alrighty, so that's nice and snug, and you have the white line right there. So that will be reconnected when we get this housing back on the other housing. The black line we worked on before, that's right here behind me. I'm going to bring it over and we can connect that as well. Again, this has the flow reducer. And I probably should not have snugged that into the line. I should have connected it first. So give me a second. All right, disconnected it from the line. Now we're just going to put it in here, snug it down. Now I noticed from the factory, it appears that they did use some sort of anti-leak compound on the threads. I didn't find it on all the threads. I only found it on some of them. I have not replaced that, and it's mostly just because I don't think it needs it. It's got such a large amount of thread engagement that it should be fine. Of course, you can always have leaks along the thread, but then again, I haven't taken off the old stuff either, so I'm expecting that it'll be just fine. If you wanted to be perfect, you could add Teflon tape. And maybe this comes back to bite me and I have to come back and add Teflon tape. If it does, I know exactly which connectors to fix. And I know exactly who's to blame. Okay, those two are on. And just to recap, check valve on the white, flow reducer on the black. Here you have the pressure tank and the water tank, part of the reverse osmosis system. If you ever found that you didn't have enough water in your system to do what you wanted in the morning, get a second tank or a bigger tank. Plumb the second tank in parallel or plumb the bigger tank instead of this one. This basically accumulates water when you're not using the system and gives the water back to you when you call for it. The reason for that is that the reverse osmosis is a lot slower than the spigot. So you don't want to sit there and wait for the water to come through drop by drop from the whole filter when you could just have it drop, drop, drop throughout the day and store up, and then you can call for as much as you want. One thing to remember here is that this contains two parts. The upper part fills up with water, the lower part is filled with air. Over time, the air in the lower part can leak out. Various ways for it to do that. Usually not a catastrophic failure, something pretty typical. And the way to fix that is to disconnect everything here by pushing in that collar and pulling out the hose like so. Take out your tank. This is after you've emptied it, of course. And you see that black thing at the bottom? That black thing is a cap for the fill valve. It's just a typical tire valve. You can fill it up with the bicycle pump. And this label here tells you how much precharge. As you can see there, it says tank precharge 5 to 8 psi. It also says maximum tank pressure 80 psi. I'm perfectly fine with that. My household pressure is nowhere near that, so we're safe on that accord. I have already repressurized this tank. It was nowhere near 5 psi, and I've brought it up to 8 psi. Hopefully it'll last for a number of years. This thing right here, this is the automatic stop valve. How it works is it has a single diaphragm, and it has inlet stream of water on one side and the reverse osmosis stream of water on the other side. And when the pressures are equal, it closes the inlet. When the pressures are unequal, that is to say, if you open the tap and start to take out some reverse osmosis water, the pressure in the reverse osmosis side of the system will go down, and that will open the inlet side. Now this says in, out. That's just in streams are here and out streams are there. So I am going to open this up and take it out, open it up, and clean it out, because everything else, the theme here has been it all needs a good cleaning. Before I do that, I'm going to label with numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. All labeled. Now I just need to pry back some of the catches that are holding it on. I think that's one. Or actually, it looks like it's just this right here. So yeah, just pull that and out it slides. And then once I've got it out, now I will be able to disconnect the lines and flip it over. The screws are on the bottom, as you can see. Actually, that's the top, because this is all upside down. Okay, that's out. The auto stop valve, and you can see I also wrote down 3 and 4, and I made some index marks. So now I can unscrew it, and we can take all 4 screws out. Let's take a look at what's inside. That was easy. Okay, so that looks like that's just the inlet water to the system. It just goes straight through, and this fills up with water, because that's the highest point when the system is right side up. And then you have this diaphragm. Let's take a better look. Let's dump out the water. Oops, dumped out the diaphragm as well. Okay, so let's look at what's here. So we have, actually, let's do that in here. So let's dump it upside down and then lift up. So that's all that was free in there. And it looks to me like we have a link. This is just a hard plastic piece. It's a linkage between this membrane and the other membrane. And O-ring, where is that part of the... And that's it. What looks like an O-ring there is just built into that membrane. Very smart. Okay, so that's one side. Now what do we have over here? Over here it looks like we have more of the same. But frankly, this didn't look too dirty. So I'm just going to give this a... Oh, that side looks pretty dirty. Why does that look... Oh, that's the inlet. Right, this is the reverse osmosis side. Okay, that underneath there is the side that probably needs to be cleaned, if anything needs to be cleaned at all. So how are we going to do this? I'm going to plug this end and blow into that end. Let's see. There we go. That was fast, easy, and yeah, a little icky. Okay, this is the bottom. It is pretty clean, thank goodness. Still going to take it, give it a rinse, and then reassemble is opposite of disassembly. Oh, there we go. Some parts came apart. So you have a membrane, you have hard plastic spacer, you have link arm between the diaphragms, another hard plastic piece, and then the other diaphragm. So that's how the whole contraption goes together. Cool. All right, to wash and back. And we're back. That would have been a perfect spot for one of those fancy snap your fingers or clap your hands transitions. As you can tell, I'm not that savvy. Now, one interesting point I want to point out here is the 2 holes on this side and the 1 hole on this side. This is just a pass-through, straight through. The reverse osmosis water comes in fills this void and goes out, and it's all at the same pressure. The inlet water comes in, fills the outer ring. Let me check, is that the inlet? Nope, that's the outlet. Okay, right here. 1, 2, okay. So inlet water comes in, fills the inner area, and then if the pressure, if the force that it exerts on its diaphragm is sufficient, it lifts the diaphragm and flows over this lip to the outlet, the outer ring, which is the outlet into the system, or into the rest of the filter. Now, the pressure differential is defined by the force differential is defined by the area of contact and the pressure of the system. And all of that's, easy to work out. Just look up Bernoulli's equation, simple math, and I just need to remember which side goes where. So here we are. This side obviously goes down because it has that ring around it. Am I right? Oh, the small piece went to the reverse osmosis portion. So the big ring, okay, we're right. Perfect. And there we go, all back together. Only thing remaining to do is put this back in there. As you can see on the back of the reverse osmosis housing, I have connected the black line and the white line. And I found this O-ring. Do not lose this O-ring, and just slip it right over the lip on the outside there. That O-ring is very important to seal the system. So next we will put our nice and clean new reverse osmosis filter in. And I have off camera taken these housings and cleaned them, and it just needs a little bit of a squeeze, and it goes in there, and then put the cap on. So yes, as I was saying, I have cleaned all the housings, wiped them out. There's a little bit of residual staining on them, but that's nothing that was going to come off easily. That's on, and I'm not going to snug it down really hard with the tool because it has an O-ring seal. As long as the O-ring is held in the right position, snugging it down farther is not going to increase the seal. So the next thing is to mount this on the wall and connect the tank. Okay, back under the sink again, and we have things back where they should be except for the 2 filter cartridges. I've taken the liberty of cleaning up my piping loops a little bit. I put the wire, the yellow one, and tucked it back there. The black one is a little loose, but it's all right. And by the way, I want to show you, the black comes out of the filter system, goes up, kind of snakes around and goes up and drops down to there. That upper bit there of that arc, that's good enough. That's gonna maintain the, that's gonna make sure that stuff doesn't try to go backwards. If it would ever try that, it's very unlikely, but anyhow, that's good enough. I don't know if you've ever seen Linus Tech Tips. He's very crazy about cable management. I'm not so crazy about cable management when I build a computer because I don't put glass sides on my computer, so I don't have to see it. But I do like neat piping, and this piping, while not perfectly neat, is good enough. I'm going to put the filters on. Oh, one thing to remember, when you're putting the filters on, after you've changed all the filters and cleaned the system, it's a good idea to sanitize the system. Put a couple tablespoons of bleach in here. I'm not sure exactly how much. Look it up online. Somebody's got it. And fill it up with water, and then screw it all together. And that will, that bleach will go through the system, both into this side and out the other side, and it will clean up the membrane and all that. The other thing to keep in mind is that you have to run, when you put in a new membrane, you need to run the whole system and empty it at least once. I think it's at least once. I like to run it twice, and just throw out the first and second batches of water that it produces, because it needs to rinse off the membrane. The membrane comes with some chemicals and preservatives. A lot of that will be caught by the second polish filter. Some of them will go through, but it needs to rinse off the entire membrane before the membrane is ready for full action, and the water coming out is really good for drinking. Once you're all set with that, then you've got nice, clean reverse osmosis water. Okay, these filter housings are on. They've got their filters in them. I've already sanitized the system. And you do want to snug these up because of the way the O-ring gets good contact when these filters are snug. So just use the tool, give it an extra tug, put that back there. Write down somewhere the date and what you did to your system, which filters you changed, which things you changed. I basically did a complete system reset, so that's what I'm going to write. And then turn on the water, charge the system. There is one final thing that you might want to do, depending on what sort of functionality you want. You see this black thing here? Just pull on the plastic tabs on either side. This is basically just a countdown timer. GE made this to be an indicator of sorts that should supposedly indicate when you need to change your filters. And you might actually think that the indicator has anything inside it that might sense the state of the filters to let you know, but in fact it's not that. It's just a simple countdown timer from what I can tell. And all it does is count down to 6 months, and then it flashes red and tells you you need to change it. I don't need that in my life, so I know when I need to change the system. So I'm just taking out the battery, which is dead anyway, and leaving it. Well, it's been a day, and I still haven't gotten good water from that system, but I did find out why. And here's a pro tip for you. If you ever change your filters in your house, change them one at a time. Start with the filter that's the first one the water encounters, change it, run the system. Then go to the next one, change it, run the system. Then go to the next ones, which are typically after that. If you have 2 filters down below in the basement, the next filters would be all the little fittings and valves and screens and strainers and the flow restrictors on your shower head, on your faucets. Open up all of those, clean them out, rinse them, or replace them, whatever you want to do. Then get to your reverse osmosis system. What I did was I changed all the household filters all at once, and all sorts of crud went flowing through, blocked up my bathroom sink, blocked up my kitchen sink, not the drain, the faucet. So I thought for some reason, why am I not getting pressure anymore? No, I was getting pressure. It's just that the flow restrictor, the little aerator that you have at the tip of the faucet, was all clogged up. So I took out the aerators, cleaned them all out, and took back apart the reverse osmosis system, and I found that my main feed line, the yellow line that started from the household water and brought water into the system, was completely clogged. So I blew that out, cleaned out everything else, blew out all the other lines and the valves and everything, and put it all back together, and we will see tomorrow whether we have water or not. So I'll catch up with you then. Nisha. Nisha. Yes, my good little kitten. And for good form's sake, I'm just going to show you, this is the next day, and we have nice water. A little bit of air still in there, but I've already run it through twice. As you can see, my spigot is a little bit wobbly on account of that broken tab, but all's well that has finally ended well, with nice, clean well water. Have a great day.